My name is Martin-Spielauer, and this is PYTV. Today, I sit down with Miss Annamie-Paul. She is a human rights lawyer and activist from Toronto, running to be the next leader of the federal Green Party. She founded the Canadian Centre for Political Engagement to fight for inclusivity, and today she sits down with me to discuss topics ranging from defunding the police to how she would manage the Green Party. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us at PYOC_official. Enjoy. So, thank you for lending us your time today.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So, as a first question, I would like to ask you what led you to the Green Party as well as the nomination in general.
Well, the Green Party, I was led to the Green Party because of our shared values. The Green Party has core values focused around things like respect for diversity and ecological wisdom, participatory democracy. And so many of the things that I care about and that I've worked on for a really long time are things that the Green Party also has been working on for a very long time. And it's the first political party that I've joined, actually. In terms of the race and why I decided to run, much of that has to do with, I think, matching your skills and your experience with a particular time. And I felt that at this particular time in the history of our party, and also in the history of of these territories, that it was something that I could contribute towards the issues that were really important to me. And hopefully the members will agree.
Yeah. So you just mentioned your experience. So as an accomplished activist and lawyer who has represented various causes such as ecology and diversity, what would be the most pressing issue for you and how would you address it?
The climate emergency is definitely the most pressing issue. And my hope is that we use all that we've learned during this period and that we use the money that's going to be spent in order to get the economy going again very wisely in order to help us to get to a carbon neutral economy as quickly as we possibly can. That's really my most sincere hope. And it's an existential threat. So everything, and it affects everything, it really it affects so many other things around it. And then, of course, it's very difficult to speak about climate justice and dealing with the climate emergency without talking about social justice. And so that's my other concern as well, making sure that we emerge more resilient from the pandemic than we were before.
Yes, and a huge social justice theme recently has been dismantling systemic racism in the police, so that's a big part of your platform. But there's a plethora of ideas to tackle systemic racism, ranging from all the way from increasing the police budget to defunding and completely abolishing it. And in fact, many candidates in the leadership race believe in completely doing away with the whole police system. So I'd like to ask where you stand in terms of the actions that need to be taken to reform the police, and provided that we need community safety.
Well, we had some information yesterday, some new data published and an analysis of the data published by the Ontario Human Rights Commission, which really reinforces why systemic change is needed. Some of the, let's say, standout or most notable statistics from that analysis is that even though Black people are about 8.8 or let's say 9% of the population in Toronto, they represent just about 1/3 of all of the charges that are brought. And that is in comparison with all other racialized groups and white people, both of whom were found to be underrepresented in charges. And so those things really just drive home that change is needed. And even prior to this, we were saying that we put out a policy briefing on dismantling systemic racism in policing, focused on 4 things. First, reducing the money, the budgetary allocation of police services. That's the first. There's been a very significant spike in the budgets of police services across the country that has gone far beyond and really outstripped the funding that has been given to community and social services. And so we want to see a reduction in police services budgets, and then that money reallocated towards existing community and social services where possible, and where needed, the creation of new services. So, for instance, emergency mental health response units that can deal with things like wellness checks without the police being the first responders. And then we want to see more community oversight of policing, and we need to stop seeing police investigating police. There really needs to be external investigation and oversight of policing where there have been complaints related to use of force, for instance. And then finally, record. And this new analysis from this Toronto Police Services database really reinforces why you can't know the full picture if you haven't done the research, and you can't do the research without the data. And so we really need the data in order to fully understand the true picture of racism in policing and how it disproportionately affects certain communities.
Yeah, and just as a follow-up, would you say that we should move towards abolishment or just vigorous reform?
I think that police services should be doing only the things that security services or security forces are needed to do. And there will almost certainly always be a need for those kind of services. So we need someone, if there's a bomb threat in a mosque, we need someone to be able to effectively deal with that security threat. We need to if we find out that there's a ring of sexual predators, we need to be able to investigate that and to stop that. And so there is going to be a role for security services and investigative services, but the role of police services has just ballooned over the years to include a lot of things that cannot and should never have been the responsibility of police services. And those things need to be separated out from police services and allocated to the proper agencies. So that's the way that we view it. I do not support abolishment of the police, but I support a systemic structural reform of police services.
Okay, and just moving into international affairs, you've worked with Canada's mission to the European Union. You've advised the International Criminal Court. So I'd like to ask, in terms of international affairs, what do you think should be the government's priority to strengthen Canada on the world stage?
Well, we unfortunately have lost quite a lot of stature over the last number of years. It really began during the Harper years, and there hasn't been any noticeable recuperation or recovery of our global stature since the government changed. A lot of that has to do with, again, being fully involved and responsible members of the international community. Whether it's the climate emergency, where we just simply do not have targets that correspond to the science. And that's a global concern when a country like Canada doesn't have targets that correspond to the science in terms of what we need to do to reduce greenhouse gases, or it's the amount of overseas development assistance that we provide. We have really just let ourselves go in terms of showing leadership and creating opportunities for leadership for ourselves internationally. And so we, in terms of recuperating our reputation, it takes time to lose it, but it also takes time to recover it. And so it's just about the simple things of being a good member of the international community that is reliable, that pays their fair share, that recognizes their responsibilities. And that's how we build it up over time.
Now, just to ask about the minority parliament situation. So the Green Party vote has never been more significant in a minority parliament situation such as the one we have now. So as leader of your party, what would be the main criteria for you in determining your party's stance or vote on any given policy when it passes parliament?
Well, we believe very much in cooperation and collaboration, particularly given that we're in a pandemic. And so wherever it's possible, wherever and whenever it's possible for us to find common ground and common understanding with the other parties, we certainly will do that. And there has been a lot of that. There's been a lot of cross-party cooperation during the last, during the pandemic, since the new parliament convened. And that's very encouraging. And it's something that definitely I want to see continue. And as the leader of our party, it's something that I would absolutely be encouraging and working with my caucus to make sure that we were reflecting that. We do have some very serious differences, though, with the government. And with the other political parties, amongst them, again, our commitment to the climate emergency and having Canada set proper targets for, in terms of reducing greenhouse gases and then implementing a real plan around that. We also support universal post-secondary education, which is something that, they're not all of the parties support. So when we do have to have a separate opinion and fight for a policy that we think is really important to people in Canada, then we definitely will. And that's the kind of thing that you take on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and one of those very consequential policy ideas that you have on your platform is a universal basic income. It's a pretty new idea, but I'd like to ask why you think our goal should be geared towards having a universal basic income, and what do you think would be the cost for the government and Canadians as a whole?
Well, we call it a guaranteed livable income, and it seems like a little distinction, but the reason that we make that distinction is that we want an income, we're seeking an income or a level of income support that is truly livable, that allows people not just to scrape by, but really to be able to breathe, to be able to retrain if they want to retrain, go back to school if they want to go back to school, make life decisions without the enormous pressure that comes when you don't have it, and that we're seeing during this pandemic, for instance, and allows us to adapt to changing circumstances as well. There would have been far less stress and uncertainty for a lot of people in Canada if we had had a guaranteed livable income in place as this crisis hit. And it really is designed to protect the most at-risk people in our society. And so, in terms of how we do it, this is the kind of thing that is going to require all of the cooperation and collaboration that I mentioned before. It's something that is going to require the provincial level of government and the federal level of government to work together on. There are many different models that we should be considering and exploring and modifying to really reflect the needs of people in Canada, and also the needs in different regions of Canada as well. And in terms of paying for it, a lot of the solution in terms of how to pay for it that the Green Party has proposed centers around eliminating the hodgepodge of various benefits that we have now, where people continuously fall through the cracks, which are very expensive to administer as well, and using the savings from all of that to support a guaranteed livable income.
And just to be clear, the guaranteed livable income would only go to Canadians who wouldn't have a livable income already, right?
So the guaranteed livable income is a universal benefit. And in terms of, there are other benefits that you have. And in terms of, these are things always to discuss and negotiate. And we've really stressed that. The Green Party is very aware that this is something that needs, we need to be considering that there are very many different models, there are very many different ways to design it, and so that you incentivize or disincentivize certain types of action. And so, what we're saying about the guaranteed livable income is that it's universal. We want it to be universal, and it's a baseline. And it might perhaps, for instance, in answer to your question, be something that is phased out on the basis of the income that you have. That is certainly a model that is being explored in other countries, and that one that we could explore here. But I wouldn't want to prejudge the discussions or negotiations. What I'm saying and what the Green Party is saying is, let's talk about it, and let's talk about it now while we still have these emergency benefits, so that once we have to move away from that system, there's something new in place that can replace it, and that gives more security to all of those people who aren't eligible for the various benefits that exist right now.
Okay, and as a last question, again, I'd like to thank you for lending us your time today. And I'd like to ask you if you have a message for youth or any advice for youth who want to get involved in politics, even if they're below the voting age.
Well, first I can tell them that you can join the Green Party as of age 14. And there are many, many young Greens that are involved in our party in leadership roles. And there are no barriers. There are no positions within the Green Party that require the holder to be of a certain age, as long as they're a member. And anyone who's a permanent resident or a citizen can be a member of the Green Party. Your viewers are very welcome to join our campaign. Almost all of our teams are being led by young Greens, 22 and under, I would say. And it's because they're ready to lead. They're leaders, they're ready to lead. Our campaign is doing really well, and a lot of that has to do with them. And just be proactive. Most of the parties, I would say all of the major parties, are very eager to attract young people. There's been a growing disconnect between parties and young people. The voting rate is significantly lower within that demographic. So, just show up. Showing up, I promise you, if you show up regularly and you offer to help and you demonstrate that you're capable in any way, there will definitely be a place made for you in any of the parties. Because we're very eager to connect, and I would say connect with the parties that make it clear that they value your contribution.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You as well.